increasing extreme weather events taking away precious livelihoods and lives, from posing issues such as intense droughts, water scarcity, severe fires, rising sea levels, to flooding, melting of polar ice, catastrophic storms, and declining biodiversity. This is all happening as we speak. So climate change remains as the most serious threat in Pakistan. Let me tell you, as the earlier speakers have also mentioned, that Pakistan makes a tiny contribution to the total global greenhouse gases, but is amongst the countries that's most vulnerable to climate change and is the 8th most affected country due to climate change in the world. So that's where we stand. So while mitigation in the global north deals with emission control, adaptation requires a bigger canvas, where climate justice requires to build adaptive capacity amongst various sectors, leading to climate resilient development by engaging in multiple sectors. For Pakistan, the more immediate and pressing task is to prepare itself for adaptation to climate change and attend to loss and damage. So one big area is adaptation, which I'll explain, and the other is loss and damage. The floods of 2022, we're still not over the loss and damage caused by those floods. And you heard the figure of 32 billion is the loss that we have faced. Where is the money? We're talking about it, we still haven't come out of it. It can unfortunately happen any time again. So, according to the latest National Adaptation Plan, NAP, spanning from 2023 to 2030, we've outlined areas where we can go for adaptation, and that is important. Water security is our first concern. Implementing integrated water resource management to address water scarcity. Second is agriculture and food security. Second big concern that we must attend to. Third, disaster risk reduction. Number 4 is health, which we need to understand and attend to. Urban planning and infrastructure is the 5th one, as listed by the National Adaptation Plan. And then it is the ecosystems and biodiversity. So these are, and energy, of course, as the last factor. So we need to develop our financial capacity to deal with these adaptation measures. If we do not adapt, we are being seriously affected every day. So what we need to do is to think of where is the money and how do we get the money to deal with this. Now, what is important is that we need to understand that in the world, globally, mitigation has failed. We're talking about it, but the North hasn't mitigated. And now recently, I think climate change in the US takes a hit. They don't want to talk about climate change, and they don't want to talk about EVs and all that. But the question is that mitigation in the world has failed, which has led to adaptation. Adaptation has also failed, which has led to loss and damage. So please understand the trajectory is not very encouraging. And, recently we had COP29, 29 years of global discussions, and we haven't handled mitigation, leading to adaptation, leading to loss and damage. So something has to be done domestically, because now this is where I want to talk about that climate finance, and we in the judiciary, and as somebody who represents the judiciary, climate justice now only focuses on climate finance. And to me, climate finance is the only way to climate justice. There is no other way we can deal with climate issues without climate finance. So to me, climate finance is the new human right. It is as strong a human right as right to life that our Constitution provides, a right to a sustainable life that the Constitution provides. If there is no climate finance, there is no right to life, as it appears the way things are happening. So, to my mind, as a judge, I would say that climate finance is the new human right, and we need to take it in that vein and in that direction. Climate finance becomes our lifeline to strengthen our infrastructure, agriculture, which we need to face and fight with courage. So in global south, that's including Pakistan, we see year after year the impacts of climate change are getting more intense. And you would witness that, and I'm sure you would support that, that every year hundreds of millions, water management, health, displacement and migration, economic inequality and disaster resilience. Without climate finance, we can't do it. However, for climate finance to be truly effective, it must be mobilized to an unprecedented scale and to be accessible in timely manner to those who need the most. Therefore, climate finance in countries that require adaptation to climate change is fundamentally a human right. So, let's look at where do we go about this. If we don't attend to this climate finance issue or the climate change issue, we are creating a distinction between the North and the South, the two, global North, global South. And soon we might be faced with climate apartheid, because there are countries who cannot face climate issues, and there are countries who are polluting, who are generating all that's creating climate change. So moving ahead, the issue would be, where is the money? Where do we look for money and for our adaptation, for our loss and damage that is happening every day? So when we look at it, the moral obligation lies on the North. Obviously, I mean, there is no question about it. They're the ones who created all this. So we go back to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, and which talks about common but differentiated responsibilities. It talks about the fact that the North must look after the South for whatever they have done. So I would imagine that there is a climate debt that the North owes the South. That's very clear. And I would call this climate justice now a reparative justice. This is reparations that they have to give us. So that moral obligation in the North stays. They have to pay up, and they must pay up, and we must try to articulate as a global South together to get that money from North, the global North, that they must pay us this, considering it to be a climate debt that they owe to us and they must pay. But in reality, what is happening? You see, are we being able to articulate this point? Are we able to get money from the North? Let's see. We have the Green Climate Fund, GCF. We have the Global Environmental Facility, which is GEF. These are the big global names that they throw at us, and they say there's a lot of money there. There is Adaptation Fund, called AF. There is Climate Investment Fund, CIF. Then there is, and there are a number of them, I tell you. Least Development Countries Fund, LDCF. We have the Special Climate Change Fund, SCCF. And we have the International Climate Finance by Donor Countries. So there's a lot of, they talk about all this global funding that's available. But what has trickled down to Pakistan? Let's talk about the floods in 2022. We had a $32 billion loss. The loss is right there. What has happened? What has trickled into Pakistan from all these fancy global funds in the world? We've not been able to get maybe a meager amount. One of the figures that comes out might be about 2 or 3 billion. Whether at all that has actually come to Pakistan, I don't know, and that's not my area. But all I'm saying is that these funds are there, but we're not getting to them. We cannot access them. The money is not coming to us. So we have to, in order to get these funds from global forums, we have to understand the fund's mandates, identify funds that match your country's needs. We have to establish institutional mechanism. I'm telling you the procedure on reaching out to these global funds. Establish institutional mechanism like national focal points. We have to have accredited entities called AEs